There are families in this world whose names appear on hospital wings, university libraries, and city streets. Families that have held wealth, real, generational, compounding wealth, for 4, 5, sometimes 7 generations. And here is the thing almost nobody talks about. They didn't keep that wealth by accident. One of the most carefully guarded secrets behind their longevity isn't a portfolio strategy. It isn't tax law or offshore accounts. It is something far more intimate. It is who they allow into the bloodline. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the silent, unspoken, and sometimes ruthless rules that old money families have used for centuries to vet, approve, or quietly destroy a potential spouse. These rules are rarely written down. They are passed from mother to daughter over lunch, from father to son on a golf course. They are felt, not stated. And yet they govern some of the most consequential decisions these families ever make. Stay with me, because whether you come from money or not, what you're about to learn will permanently change how you see wealth, marriage, and power. Before we get into the rules, let's be precise about what we mean by old money, because this is not about celebrities, athletes, or tech billionaires. Those are new money. Flashy, yes. Powerful sometimes. But operating by entirely different social codes. Old money refers to families whose wealth has been preserved and passed down across multiple generations, typically 3 or more. Think the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Rothschilds, the Astors, the DuPonts, the Anellis of Italy, the aristocratic families of Britain, the grandes familles of France, the hacienda dynasties of Latin America, and their equivalents across every culture on Earth. What distinguishes them is not just the size of the wealth, but the infrastructure around it. Family trusts, foundations, boards, advisors, family constitutions, and deeply encoded social rituals, of which marriage is perhaps the most important. Because here is the brutal arithmetic of generational wealth. Every marriage either strengthens the fortress or creates a crack in the wall. Old money families know this instinctively, and so, long before any ring is purchased, a silent evaluation begins. Rule number 1, family background outweighs the individual. The first and most fundamental rule is one that modern culture has trained us to find deeply uncomfortable. You are not just marrying a person, you are marrying a family. In old money circles, the background check on a potential spouse is not a Google search. It is a genealogical audit. They want to know, where does this family come from? How long have they had their position? Were they given their money or did they build it? How do they behave when the money runs low, and has it ever? Have there been public scandals, criminal records, bankruptcies, divorces, mental illness, addiction? Notice none of these questions are about the individual sitting across the dinner table. They are about the ecosystem that produced that individual. Old money families understand what modern psychology is only recently confirming, that behavioral patterns, emotional regulation, values around money, and relationship styles are overwhelmingly transmitted through family systems, not invented by individuals. A charming, educated, and attractive candidate who comes from a family with a history of financial recklessness is considered, in these circles, a ticking clock. Their personal qualities don't override the pattern. The family's track record is data, and old money families are ruthless analysts of data. This is why you will notice that in these families, the parents are never truly out of the picture when it comes to a child's romantic life. It isn't controlling, or rather, it isn't only controlling. It is risk management, dressed in social etiquette. Rule number 2, emotional stability is non-negotiable. Here is something that surprises most people. Old money families are not primarily looking for passion. They are not looking for fireworks. They are looking for something far less cinematic and far more durable. They are looking for emotional stability. Wealth, at its highest levels, is a complex and high-pressure environment. There are board meetings, family disputes, public scrutiny, philanthropic obligations, estate decisions, and the quiet but constant burden of maintaining legacy. The person who enters this environment must be psychologically equipped for it. Old money families are specifically wary of what some family advisors quietly call emotional volatility. Dramatic highs and lows, public displays of grievance, an inability to manage conflict discreetly, or a tendency toward what one wealth consultant described as performing distress. The ideal spouse, in their framework, is someone who is calm under pressure, who handles disappointment with grace, who does not require constant external validation, and who can sit in a room full of powerful, opinionated people and be utterly composed. This is why old money courtship often involves deliberately stressful social situations. Long family dinners, where internal politics simmer beneath polished surfaces, travel in unfamiliar settings, or introductions to difficult personalities. They are not being cruel. They are watching. They are observing how you behave when the environment is imperfect. The candidate who complains about the food, who takes offense too easily, who cannot graciously navigate disagreement, they have already failed a test they didn't know they were taking. Rule number 3, discretion is a core qualification. Here is a word you will hear again and again in the world of old money. Not loyalty, not love, not even class. Discretion. Old money families live with a fundamental tension. They hold enormous influence, and that influence depends significantly on their reputation. Reputation, in these circles, is not about being liked. It is about being perceived as stable, reliable, controlled, and above the messy volatility of public drama. A spouse who talks, who gossips, who shares private information with outsiders, who posts family matters on social media, who discusses finances with friends, is not just an annoyance. They are an existential threat to the family's carefully managed public image. This is why old money families pay extraordinary attention to how a potential spouse speaks about other people. If you are dating someone from such a family, and you freely gossip about your friends, share confidences you were trusted with, or speak carelessly about private matters, they are noting this carefully, because they know if you do it about others, you will do it about us. Discretion also extends to money itself. Old money people rarely discuss specific financial figures, even among themselves. A potential spouse who asks too many questions about the family's assets, who seems overly curious about inheritance structures, or who makes financial assumptions out loud, has triggered an alarm. The unspoken rule is simple. Money is never the subject of conversation. Money is the context in which all conversation happens. Rule number 4, values alignment, not just lifestyle compatibility. Here is where old money thinking diverges dramatically from how most people approach marriage compatibility. The average person asks, do we like the same things? Do we enjoy the same lifestyle? Do we travel well together? Old money families ask a different and deeper question. Do we hold the same values around stewardship, legacy, and obligation? Because the heir or heiress of a significant family fortune is not truly an owner in the way we typically understand ownership. They are custodians. The wealth existed before them. It is meant to continue after them. Their job is to preserve, grow, and wisely deploy what was entrusted to them, and eventually hand it on. A spouse who views the family wealth as a lifestyle resource, as something to be consumed rather than cultivated, is considered deeply unsuitable, regardless of how wonderful they are in every other respect. This is why old money families often look with great favor on individuals who come from cultures or backgrounds with strong traditions of stewardship, whether financial, agricultural, or civic. Someone who grew up understanding that certain things are held in trust for the next generation is already speaking the family's language. They also look closely at charitable instincts, not performative charity, not someone who attends galas for the social credit, but someone who has a genuine, considered relationship with giving. This signals that the individual understands wealth as a responsibility, not merely an entitlement. Rule number 5, the mother's verdict. Across cultures and across centuries, there is a remarkably consistent pattern in old money families. The mother's opinion is decisive. This is not simply sentiment. It is structural. In most generational wealth families, regardless of whether the patriarch appears to be in charge, it is the matriarch who is the true keeper of the family's social and cultural standards. She is the one who has spent decades managing relationships, maintaining alliances, raising children to carry the family's values, and watching with an experienced eye who is genuinely suitable and who merely appears to be. Her read on a potential spouse is not based on a checklist. It is instinctive, accumulated, and usually devastatingly accurate. She has seen enough marriages from the inside, the successful ones and the catastrophic ones, to recognize the patterns early. Critically, she is looking for something that no interview can manufacture: genuine respect for the family's way of life. Not admiration of the wealth, not deference to the power. Actual, authentic respect for the rituals, the values, the obligations, and the history that the family has built. A potential spouse who tries too hard to impress the matriarch will often fail. She has seen flattery before. What she responds to is someone who is comfortable in themselves, who doesn't need to perform, and who treats the family's world with quiet, genuine appreciation rather than hungry fascination. If the mother is cold, the relationship is in serious trouble. If she is warm, the path becomes considerably smoother. In many old money families, her nod is the only one that truly matters. Rule number 6, the long courtship and the patience test. Old money does not rush. This principle extends to courtship. While modern dating culture moves fast, driven by apps, convenience, and the social pressure to be settled, old money families treat the courtship period as an extended evaluation. Long engagements are not unusual. Multi-year relationships before any formal commitment are expected. And during this time, the family is watching, assessing, and forming their collective view. There is a specific thing they are watching for: how the candidate handles uncertainty, because the one thing a long courtship creates is prolonged ambiguity. There is no ring yet. There is no formal place in the family yet. The candidate exists in an undefined zone, welcomed, but not yet accepted, present, but not yet permanent. How they navigate that zone reveals everything. Do they grow anxious and begin pushing for commitment? That suggests insecurity and a difficulty with delayed gratification. Do they behave one way in the early stages and differently as months pass? That is a consistency problem. Do they treat lower status family members and staff with the same warmth they show the most powerful figures in the room? That, more than anything, is the character test. Old money families have a well-worn saying in various cultural forms that translates roughly to this: watch how they treat people who can do nothing for them. The patience test is also a test of self-sufficiency. The ideal spouse is not waiting for the family to complete them. They have their own life, their own purpose, their own sense of identity. They are a full person who chooses this family, not a person who needs this family. Rule number 7, education and intellectual caliber. This rule is often misunderstood. Old money families do care about education, but not in the way people assume. They are not primarily looking for a prestigious degree. A diploma from an elite university is a signal of intellectual capacity, of the ability to move in certain rooms, of exposure to a certain world. But it is only a signal. What they are actually looking for is the thing the degree is meant to represent. They are looking for a mind that can hold complexity. Old money life involves complex legal structures, complex family dynamics, complex ethical questions about power and responsibility, and complex social environments where you must read rooms, manage relationships, and make long-term decisions under uncertainty. A spouse who cannot engage with complexity, who is intellectually passive, who defers reflexively, who cannot hold and articulate their own informed perspective, is a liability. Equally, a spouse who is intellectually arrogant, who uses their education as a weapon, who cannot listen, who confuses certainty with knowledge, is also unsuitable. What they prize is the person who is curious, rigorous, and humble, someone who reads, someone who asks questions that reveal they have thought about the world carefully, someone who can sit with the family's lawyers, advisors, philanthropic partners, and political associates and engage meaningfully, not as a spectator, but as a genuine participant. Intellectual caliber in this world is a survival tool, and old money families recruit for survival. Rule number 8, presentation and the unspoken aesthetic code. Old money has its own aesthetic language, and it is almost perfectly opposite to the language of new money. Where new money says loud, old money says quiet. Where new money says branded, old money says understated. Where new money says impressive, old money says appropriate. A potential spouse who arrives draped in visible luxury logos, who speaks loudly about their purchases, who conflates spending with sophistication, has demonstrated in a single evening that they do not understand the culture they are attempting to enter. Old money presentation is about effortless appropriateness. The right clothes for the right occasion, worn without self-consciousness. The right conversational register for the right room. The ability to be equally comfortable at a black tie foundation dinner and a muddy country estate weekend. A posture, literal and figurative, that suggests ease rather than effort. This is not about being born into money. It is about having absorbed certain values around presentation. Values that center on restraint, quality over quantity, and the principle that the person should be more interesting than anything they are wearing. A candidate who has grown up modestly but carries themselves with dignity, with genuine style, not fashion, and with the quiet confidence of someone who is comfortable in their own skin. This person is far more appealing to old money than a nouveau riche peer who knows all the right brands but wears them as armor. The meta rule: authentic fit, not performance. Here is the deepest rule, the one that underlies all the others, and it is in some ways the most counterintuitive. Old money families are not looking for someone who is trying to fit in. They are looking for someone who genuinely fits. There is a world of difference between the two. Someone trying to fit in is always slightly tense, slightly studied, slightly aware of their performance. And old money families, who have spent generations watching people perform, can feel that tension from across a dining room. What they are looking for is someone who encounters their world and feels at home, not because they have prepared exhaustively, but because the values, the temperament, and the approach to life are authentically aligned. This is why, paradoxically, the candidates who succeed most easily in these environments are often not the ones who grew up dreaming of marrying into a dynasty. They are the ones who were raised with strong values, genuine intellectual curiosity, quiet self-confidence, and a deep respect for continuity and responsibility, regardless of the size of their own family's bank account. Old money doesn't need you to be from money. It needs you to understand what money, at its best, is for. So there you have it, the silent rules that have governed the most consequential decisions of some of the world's most enduring families, not written in any manual, not posted on any wall, but passed down through culture, through observation, through raised eyebrows and quiet conversations in rooms you will never be invited into. What I find fascinating about these rules, and why I think they matter far beyond the world of generational wealth, is that stripped of their context, most of them are just timeless principles of character, emotional stability, discretion, genuine values, intellectual substance, consistency, and the grace to carry yourself with dignity. The old money families have simply built systems to identify these qualities at scale, under pressure, over time. They have made the vetting of character into something approaching a science. And perhaps the most interesting question isn't how do I measure up to these standards, but rather what would it look like to build a life and choose a partner with this kind of intentionality? Not because you want to join an old money family, but because you want to build something that lasts. If this video made you think, if it taught you something you didn't know before, give it a like, share it with someone who would appreciate it, and subscribe if you're new here. We go deep on wealth, culture, power, and the invisible rules that shape the world. I'll see you in the next one.